Good day to you. It's Marty Westley, and I'm very glad that to have you on this journey that we are taking to search for the truth. So I hope that you will be blessed with me. Today we're starting again with beginning 2, including Mount Hermon, because this is a lecture that I'm going to give you that happened before verse 1. So, and Mount Hermon is included in there. So Genesis 1:1 says, "In beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim va'et haaretz." And it's got this enlarged bait in front of it. So this sentence begins with an enlarged bait. Beit also means house. In other words, the house is Yeshua, in which Elohim lived when Yeshua came down from heaven. This is the only enlarged beit in the Hebrew Bible, and there is no the printed in front of Bereshit. Be or ba, in, through, because of, with the purpose of, and bara, create, to give an existence to something which does not exist. And asa is made, completed, brought to completion, do or make, bring forth or to provide. And to form something, formed is yatsar, and it means modeled, molded, formed, and shaped. Right, so it says in beginning, first in place, time, order, or rank, first fruit, chief principal thing. And first is Rishon, first in place, time, or rank, that were before time. Beginning, former of old time and past. Olam in the Hebrew means concealed, in other words, the vanishing point that you can see. Out of mind, eternity, world without end. So Elohim was in beginning before time. Proverbs 3:19 says that Yahweh by wisdom hath founded the earth, by understanding hath he established the heavens. We saw in Jeremiah 10:12, he had made the earth by his power, he hath established the world by his wisdom, and hath stretched out the heavens by his discretion. It's all to do with intelligence, reason, understanding, and wisdom. And I think we also read Job 38:4-7. Where was thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of Elohim shouted for joy. But the main one was here in Proverbs 8:22-27. It says, Yahweh possessed me in beginning of his way, before his works of old. And in the Hebrew, it's straight out reshit, with a very enlarged resh, the R. There is no the in beginning. It speaks of the dateless past. I was set up from everlasting, from beginning, or ever the earth was. When there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no fountains abounding with water. Before the mountains were settled, before the hills was I brought forth. While as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. And when he set a compass upon the face of the depth. So, wisdom was made or formed by God. And so before the earth was, wisdom had to be made. Isaiah 48:13 says, Mine hand also hath laid the foundation of the earth, and my right hand has spanned the heavens. When I call unto them, they stand up together. This makes it clear that the heavens were first created and all that are in the heavens. Else the stars could not have rejoiced when the earth was created. Says Genesis 1:1 refers to prior acts of Elohim, and the verses which follow refer to the earth under a flood and judgment, and then restored to a second habitable state. So in beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God, Ruach Elohim, moved or brooded upon the face of the waters. When Elohim created, he never created anything void, and void is tohu, ruin, chaos, disorder, confusion, emptiness. So between verses 1 and 2 of Genesis, there must have been a great disaster or a great judgment that came upon the world that then existed. In Jeremiah says that I beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form and void, and the heavens, they had no light. I beheld the mountains, and lo, they trembled, and all the hills moved lightly. I beheld, and lo, there was no man, and all the birds of the heavens were fled. I beheld, and lo, the fruitful place was a wilderness, and all the cities thereof were broken down at the presence of Yahweh by his fierce anger. Isaiah 45:18 says, For thus says Yahweh that created the heavens, Elohim himself that formed the earth and made it. He hath established it. He created it not in vain. Tohu. He formed it to be inhabited. He said, I am Yahweh, and there is none else. Well, 2 Peter 3:5-6 says, For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of Elohim the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. He was not talking here about Noah's blood. Tohu, to be empty, ruin, waste, desolate. Everything was thrown into chaos. The only time the earth has ever been without form and void was before the 6 days of Genesis 1:3. He formed everything to be inhabited. It is clear from the fall of Adam and Chava that sin existed before man was created. And verse 1 is the introduction to the whole Bible and all history. It marks the boundary between time and eternity. It mentions heaven first. So to find out more information, we've got to go to the prophets of old. Ezekiel 28:12-19 says, Son of man, take up a lamentation upon the king of Tyrus, and say unto him, Thus says Yahweh Elohim, Thou sealest up the sum, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of Elohim. Every precious stone was thy covering, the sardius, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of thy tabrets and of thy pipes was prepared in thee in the day that thou wast created. Sealest means to close up the sum. It's like tochnet. It's the sum or the pattern. Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mountain of Elohim. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created, till iniquity was found in thee. By the multitude of thy merchandise they have filled the midst of thee with violence, and thou hast sinned. Therefore I will cast thee as profane out of the mountain of Elohim, and I will destroy thee, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. Covering cherub is sachach, and it means to entwine as a screen, to fencing, to defend, to hedging, to protect. He was a screen for Yahweh's glory. Otherwise, other angels could not have worked around the throne. He had the most honored position of all the cherubim in the heavens. And I never heard of another cherubim that said was anointed by God. Then it says, thine heart was lifted up because of thy beauty. Thou hast corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. I will cast thee to the ground. I will lay thee before kings, that they may behold thee. Thou hast defiled thy sanctuaries by the multitude of thine iniquities, and by the iniquity of thy traffic. Therefore will I bring forth a fire from the midst of thee. It shall devour thee, and I will bring you to ashes upon the earth in the sight of all them that behold thee. All they that know thee among the people shall be astonished at thee. Thou shalt be a terror, and never shalt thou be any more. Yeah, the earthly king of Tyre was Ethobalus II. The supernatural king of Tyre was Halel, light bearer. The word Lucifer is the Latin equivalent of the Greek word phosphoros. Pride was his fall, and it seems that the sanctuaries were the ones he had in the pre-Adamite world on earth, where he and his subjects worshipped Elohim. It seems that angels ruled various planets. The iniquity of his traffic was that of slandering Elohim to his subjects, and gradually leading a third of the angels to rebel openly against Elohim. He sought to be equal with Yahweh. Satan desired to be the one to possess all that Yahweh created and to be like him, and he hated the Messiah. The second prophet was Isaiah, who had a vision about Satan in the end times. Isaiah 14:9-14 says, hell, or Sheol, from beneath is moved for thee, to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead. The Hebrew Bible says the Rephaim, another of the seed of the Nephilim. It says, it stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones. Remember the chief ones were those, the Nephilim giants. They became like gods. They were treated like kings. It has raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. All they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vials. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. It must have been an awful sight. Verse 12 says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, Halel ben Shachar, son of the morning. How art thou cut down to the ground, which dost weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High, El Elyon. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, Sheol, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as the wilderness, and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners? it gives us a little bit of insight of what happened on the earth before Genesis 1. Isaiah 45:18 says, "For thus saith Yahweh that created the heavens, Elohim himself that formed the earth and made it. He hath established it, he created it not in vain, he formed it to be inhabited. I am Yahweh, and there is none else." So we see Hillel corrupted and invaded heaven with a third of heaven's angels. He led the heavenly rebellion against Yahweh, but was cut down to the ground, defeated like a tree being felled, humbled before the heavens and the earth. Thus the earth was judged and flooded. He became the first sinner in creation. He is now the profane, internal corrupted cherub, called Hillel or Satan, that goes to and fro throughout the earth to see whom he can devour. He is not only Elohim's adversary, but also man's adversary. He knows his end, and he wants to influence mankind to rebel against their Maker and to take as many people with him into hell. Hell was never made for mankind. Hell was created for Satan and all the fallen angels. The Mount of the congregation is Mount Zion in the heavenly Jerusalem and is called Har Megiddo. And it comes from the root meged, and it means valuable as a product or precious fruit, meaning first fruit. The mountain of his first fruit, that is what is called, and is prepared for the true believers in Yeshua and Yahweh. And that is why he hates us so much. We can see this in the renewed covenant scriptures. Hebrews 12:22-24 says, "But ye are come unto Mount Zion, and unto the city of El High, which is the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to an innumerable company of angels, to the general assembly and church of the firstborn, which are written in heaven, and to Elohim, the judge of all, and to the spirits of just men made perfect, and to Yeshua, the mediator of the new covenant, which should be the renewed covenant, and to the blood of sprinkling that speaketh better things than that of Abel." Now, the church of the firstborn, remember the Bible says that all the firstborn belongs to Yahweh. And in the feast of first fruits, which is the first feast of Shavuot, you will get the meaning more of the firstborn and why the church is called the firstborn. So turn with me to the renewed covenant scriptures. The renewed covenant scriptures is called Berit Hadashah. Hadash means new, rebuild, renew, repair, refresh. In Greek, it is kainos, freshness, kainotes, renewal, rebuild. And berit means cutting a compact made by passing between the pieces of cut flesh. Confederacy, covenant, league. In the Greek is diatheke. It means a contract, especially a divisory will, covenant, or testament. And unfortunately, when the Greek was translated into English, the translators went straight to the word testament and divisory will. From Strong's Greek to English is diatheke, a contract, divisory will, covenant, testament. Yeah, so the English translators, they seem to like the word testament and advisory will, and of course then they used it in Hebrews 10:16 to 17. For where a testament is, there must also of necessity be the death of the testator. For a testament is of force after men are dead. Otherwise it is of no strength at all whilst the testator liveth. Now Yeshua arose from the dead. He is alive forevermore. We cannot use testaments. We are talking about blood covenants. So today in Messianic circles it's correctly called the renewed covenant. Why? Because the first covenant is incorporated within the renewed covenant. Matthew 13:34 to 35 says that all these things spake Yeshua unto the multitude in parables, and without a parable spoke he not unto them, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet, saying, I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter things which have been kept secret from the foundation of the world. Psalm 78, verse 2. You can read from there. Greek in Strong's 2598. The foundation is katabala, to throw down, casting down, disruption. The root of kata is to violently throw down, to cast out, to violently arise, rebellion. It speaks of the overthrow of the pre-Adamic world. Genesis 6:1-3. The angels of Yahweh went into the daughters of men at the first, and filled the earth with their corrupted seed, which were called Nephilim, and their offspring were giants. Now these giants were called the Anakim, a people great and strong. The land of Ammon was a land of giants, the Enim, Zamzumim. The king of Bashan was a giant, and his bed was plus minus 18 feet long and 8 feet 4 inches wide. So when you look at the following scriptures, and you can read it yourself, it speaks about giants and Rephaim. Deuteronomy 3:11 and 13. Deuteronomy 10:11 to 21. Deuteronomy 9 verse 2, and in Joshua 11:21-22 speaks of the valley of giants, also called the valley of Rephaim. Now let's go back to the book of Enoch. Enoch 15:8-12 says, Now the giants who are produced from the spirits and flesh shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies, because they are born from men, not men, but mankind. And from the holy watchers they shall be evil spirits, who were born upon the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. And they will afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth, and cause trouble. They take no food, but nevertheless hunger and thirst, and cause offenses. These shall rise up against men and women, because they have proceeded from them. So these evil spirits will look for a body to possess. But then Satan decided to send another batch of fallen angels to the earth ahead of Avram. Yahweh planned to use the sword of Israel to destroy these giants, even to the women and children, so as to preserve a pure line for the Messiah to come through. When Yahweh brought Avram to Canaan to make an everlasting covenant with him and his descendants, he made sure that through Abraham's own son, Yitzchak or Isaac, Yeshua would be born to secure his redemptive plan for his people. We'll see more about Isaac later on in another lecture. Numbers 13, verse 1-3, And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, Send thou men, that they may search the land of Canaan, which I give unto the children of Israel. Of every tribe of their fathers shall ye send a man, every one a ruler among them. And Moses, by commandment of Yahweh, sent them from the wilderness of Paran, and all those men were heads of the children of Israel. Numbers 13:32-33 says, And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, The land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof. Just like Enoch said about the first watchers that went into the daughters of men, and eventually they started eating these people that fed them. And then they went and sinned with the animals. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Enoch, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. In David's time, we saw that Goliath wore an armor weighing 196 pounds, and it was 13 feet tall. It is quite possible that the giants were used to build the pyramids in Egypt and also the giant cities in Bashan. So let's go back to Genesis 6:6-7. And it repented Yahweh that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And Yahweh said, I will destroy man, whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of Yahweh. The earth was corrupt and became filled with violence. Only 8 souls survived, and all the animals, creeping things, and the fowls of the air that Yahweh allowed to board the ark. Noah and all the creatures that were in the ark replenished the earth according to Yahweh's instruction. You can see that there was no dinosaurs in the ark. And Yahweh made a perpetual covenant with them, that he will never allow another flood to destroy the world. And he placed the rainbow in the sky as a token, as a reminder to all generations. Isaiah 26:13-19 says, O Lord our God, Yahweh Eloheinu, other lords beside thee have had dominion over us, but by thee only will we make mention of thy name. They are dead. In the Hebrew it's called Rephaim. They shall not live. They are deceased. They are dead. Rephaim, they shall not rise. Therefore hast thou visited and destroyed them, and made all their memory to perish. Thou hast increased the nation, O Yahweh, thou hast increased the nation. Thou art glorified. Thou hast removed it far unto all the ends of the earth. Yahweh, in trouble have they visited thee. They poured out a prayer when thy chastening was upon them. And this is true because it says that Enoch said that after the angels, the fallen angels, had sinned, they asked for Enoch to go and ask God to forgive them. And of course God said no. Verse 17 says, Like as a woman with child that draweth near, the time of her delivery is in pain, and crieth out in her pangs, so have we been in thy sight. We have been with child, we have been in pain, we have as it were brought forth wind. We have not wrought any deliverance in the earth, neither have the inhabitants of the word fallen. Thy dead men shall live together, with my dead body shall they arise. Awake and sing, ye that dwell in dust, for thy dew is as the dew of herbs, and the earth shall cast out the dead. The Bible says the Rephaim. You can also read it in Proverbs 9:18, Rephaim. Proverbs 21:16 speaks of Rephaim. Our Bible says the dead, but in the Hebrew it's Rephaim, the seed of the Nephilim. Men started looking at these giants as gods. Psalm 88:10 to 11 says, Wilt thou show wonders to the dead? Rephaim. Shall the dead arise and praise thee? Rephaim. Selah. Shall thy loving kindness be declared in the grave, or thy faithfulness in destruction? 1 Chronicles 5:23 and 25 says, And the children of the half tribe of Manasseh dwelt in the land. They increased from Bashan unto Baal Hermon and Senir, and unto Mount Hermon. And they transgressed against Elohim of their fathers, and went a-warring after the gods of the people of the land, whom Elohim destroyed before them. Now we are going to look at Mount Hermon. This Mount Hermon intrigued me no end. And every time when I went to Israel, I landed up at Mount Hermon. It is a very large sacred mountain, forming the south of the Lebanon range of mountains, Hermon. The root haram means to seclude, to devote to religious uses, to consecrate, but it became herem, a cursed thing. And the Greeks gave it the name Panium, the mountain of all gods. It became the gateway, or the portal, of all evil knowledge. And so demonic power entered the world of mankind, first in this place. Before that time, Mount Hermon was set apart for religious use only by Yahweh. From all these scriptures, we have a clear picture of Mount Hermon, also called Mount Sion. Sion is the highest peak and has two smaller peaks called Amana and Shenir. These peaks represent some of the aspects of Elohim. Sion was not only a peak or a place, it was a symbol of the Mashiach, and it means a monumental peak, a guiding pillar, waymark for those lost in the wilderness. And the root is Shia, elevation, excellency. Another root, of course, is Shalom, to be complete, to repay, to be at peace. And the Temple Mount is sometimes called the Lebanon. It's an epithet for the Holy Temple, from the word Lavan, white. It provides atonement and whitens sin. Shenir is also called Shirion, sometimes Sirion, breastplate, coat of mail, elevated one, exalted. And Amana is something fixed, sure covenant portion. And Hermon, of course, is set apart as holy to Yahweh for religious purposes. And the root for Hermon is also Korban, to come near as a holy sacrifice. Another root is Haram, to devote, to shut in for religious use, set aside only for Yahweh's use. So these peaks are never without snow, and mists fall frequently, covering the mountain. Dew is so thick at night as to be like rain. You can read it in Psalm 103 verse 3. The upper parts are bare, but the slopes are covered with vegetation, a great haunt for wild beasts. This mountain is in the extreme north of Israel, and it is 9,166 feet high. The melting snow of Hermon fed the springs of Caesarea Philippi and created the pool of Panius. It pushed the waters into the Jordan down the gorge. There is an underground lake under Hermon called Fiala. It runs underground to Caesarea Philippi, where it breaks out and flows plus minus 15 miles south to Lake Meron, and then to the Sea of Galilee, and finally to the Dead Sea. And the valley of the Jordan here is about 4 to 10 miles wide. It overflows during March and April, the time of the latter rain. And at the foot of Mount Hermon, where the source of the Jordan is, there was a temple built to the god Pan. Today you can still see the ruins of it. It was at the entrance to the underworld, and this place was called Panius. Many people I've heard just call the plain Banyas. The believers in Pan were involved in sex orgies with goats, etc. And the Pan god was seen as the god of all demons. The image of Pan with his goat horns and rough beard and feet, half man and half beast, was seen as Halel, Satan. Now the Greeks translated Mount Hermon as Mount Panium, the mountain of all gods. So Satan commanded that altars were to be built at the foot of Hermon, and all the firstborn babies were sacrificed at the temple of Pan, at the entrance to the underworld. The blood sacrifices of little firstborn children defiled the springs of the Jordan, or the Jordan, called the descending river, for thousands of years until Yeshua was born on the 1st of Tishri. On this day, the Torah reading everywhere is the story of a miracle son called Yitzchak, from a 90-year-old woman and a 100-year-old man, Avram and Sarai, and the son's binding on Mount Moriah, and how Yahweh would supply himself a ram for a sacrifice. The sages believed that this day was the creation of the world and the beginning of time. It was also the beginning of the autumn cycle of 3 holy days. Yom Teruah, the blowing of shofars, also called Yom Hadin, or the Day of Judgment, Yom Kippur, and the Feast of Tabernacles. And so I believe that this is now time for me to say good night, and I want to say I'll see you next time. In the meantime, shalom, shalom. Thank you for joining me today on today's journey. I hope you will join me again next time. So, shalom for today until I see you again.